jelly tips.
Christmas on the beach.
Jet planes.
Pavlova.
Triblis.
Gene Bannon.
Bungee jumps.
Here we are, trying to outdo each other on YNZ's the best. Feel free to go outside and enjoy the view. We'll be a while.
Dan Carter's Undie campaign.
Welcome to Southland Mirahiku in New Zealand's Deep South, a region renowned for its unmatched beauty. This week it provides a natural playground for New Zealand's best road cyclists in the 66th edition of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Over 7 days we will see all the Deep South has to offer, starting and finishing in Invercargill, a city transforming for the future, through fertile farmland, the rugged south coast, the beauty of Fiordland and the majestic Remarkables in Queenstown, all to push the country's top road cyclists to their absolute limit. 126 riders, 21 teams, over 860 kilometres and one winner. This is the 2022 SBS Bank Tour of Southland. The drama arrived early in Tour Week as the Peloton hit the highways of Southland for Stage 2. In brilliant sunshine, a break of 9 riders made the move of the day after an hour of racing. But the storyline of the day was a major crash involving more than 30 riders which splintered the field. Defending champion Michael Vink, one of those, forced to try and ride his way back into the race. The break stretched its lead out to nearly 6 minutes as the gravel section threw another challenge at an already stressed field. Then it was pure and simply survival over the last hour of racing as the wind picked up, Australian Marcus Cully snatching the stage win while Quality Food Southland's Boris Clark collected his maiden Tour leader's yellow jersey and holds a 31-second overall lead as the Tour turns towards Te Anau for Stage 3.
Sun, no wind, just like most days in Southland. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe we can get someone else up the road. I think Zeno is probably chomping a bit to get away. He's sat in yesterday, so the attention span won't allow him to do that again. So so you see if one of the other boys can have a day out.
I think a few of the guys that got caught up in that crash yesterday that had GC aspirations might be, looking to go off the front. Get a bit more time back. So that'll definitely be something for us to watch.
As you know, it's still the Tour of Southland, anything can happen. We might get some worse weather in the end of the week, so it's definitely not the end of the tour, but we've got a lot more opportunities to play now.
I'd say it's more similar to some of the racing we had in Europe, a lot more intense, not as much control. There is some control, but it's pretty much just full gas most of the day. Pretty hectic. But the boys are used to it, so we'll just ride into the week.
Just have a look at the couple of the sprint points on offer at the start. Try get over Blackmount, and then looking at the stage as a finish for me. I'd like to get over there and try contest it.
Obviously, the crosswinds at the start along the coastline there are going to play into the race a bit, and then leading into Blackmount, I'd be interested to see who gives it some up there and tries to go off the front if anyone does, and if it stays together for a bunch sprint or something like that.
Here we are leading out of Riverton here on day 3 of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. 125 of the original 126 starters here, Doug. It's a big field once again heading around Western Southland.
In testament to the number of starters today, there's only one dropped out. That is really weather related. These riders will be relishing this. They all come from all over the globe and they all have various stories about how bad the weather is. This is just absolutely stunning conditions, and you can see there's some smiles on the faces. There's a bit of chitter chatter going on, and they'll be just ecstatic that this day has turned out the way it has, especially the likes of the QFS team and the tour leader.
Great graphic here showing us as we head right up towards the Blackmount and eventually into the finish into Te Anau later on this afternoon. There's concerns with a bit of strong winds going to be heading into the stage this afternoon, which is going to make life very difficult for these riders to try and get themselves off the front which has often been the case. The winds in this particular stage here can often buffet along the coastline.
So here we see Corby Price jumping away off the front from the Base Solutions racing team. He'll be hoping to get away before the hill climb just out of the outskirts of Riverton here. It is a bit of a springboard. A lot of them use it to try and get in a group before you get to Colac Bay, looking relaxed, having a good look over. A lot of these young guys will be relishing this sort of weather, of course. It's not a real true Southland day until we get some crosswinds, but that could happen up around the coast further along.
Of course, the other factor to consider here is yesterday, the way in which the race was turned upside down with that breakaway and a number of contenders involved in the crash means that maybe their bid for glory here may be out the back door and they've had to reassess how they're going to approach this race. So no doubt a lot of discussion in the team camps last night of how they're going to approach today and going further into the week.
It does change the dynamic, as you say, and there is a lot of planning, there is a lot of strategic discussions that go on each night with these teams. You can see here, this is quite dramatic, the Creation Science Montague team. James Canny will be proud of these lads. They're really driving this climb and really trying to use this as a chance to split the field up, which is occurring single file all the way behind. This is obviously a planned move. These guys are really, really putting the heat on the field.
Yes, when you talk plans, these guys have got a simple one. Every day it's to go out there, hurt the field and try and pick up as much as they possibly can in any one of the classifications. And it's the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains in which they've set up George Jackson here to try and roll the opposition and pick up maximum points here as they hit the first of the hill climbs of the day. And he does a good job of it. So Jackson now, he's shown his intentions here with the team. It'll be interesting because often after these sort of surges here, a bit of a break can happen, or they'll decide to head straight back into that fold of the peloton.
The ferociousness with which these hill preems, we saw it yesterday up the Glenure climb, the ferociousness that which these guys are contesting all these preems along is a testament to the fact that they really are keen and really want to win these jerseys. You can see here, of course, the peloton is still together, which is a good sign early on for a lot of the riders further on in the field. There's a bit of looking around going on at the front, going, crikey, we've put these big efforts in and there's no gaps yet. So this will continue. This kind of start and this kind of racing is really, really energy sapping on your legs, especially if you're trying to instigate it. And there is a lottery, as we know, for which group goes away with which riders represented from each team. So it's going to be an interesting ride coming in through Colac Bay.
Yes, it's certainly a mix of teams involved as we see Oxford Edge heading down the left-hand side here. Of course, they're the team based out of Christchurch. They've got a rider from Switzerland who's well up on the overall general classification as well here as they try and stir things up. Meanwhile, there's a number of them just hanging on to the back of the field.
Yeah, the Masters team, the 2 Degrees team, featuring here Callum Henderson. They're on a bucket list. He's living in Australia now. They've been concocting a bit of a plan at the back of the field. Meanwhile, at the front, it's all guns blazing again. And like you said earlier, the Creation Science Montague squad, they are so keen to stir this up and go for those sprint preems all along the way. They are just really taking as many points as they can.
But they can't take it off the man in the Harcourt Sprint Ace jersey. That is Kirkuzu of Invercargill. Of course, the New Zealand track endurance rider picks up some early points here on day 3 of the tour. So here's a great shot of the peloton making their way around towards the coastline, towards Tuatapere. A number of King of the Mountains points up for grabs. And here we have it. Cooley, he's already taken out a stage in this year's tour. He's been very active here early this morning, and he's starting to look like he's wanting to pick up maximum points for the climb going very early.
Yeah, share the road Macaulay Ford. They've got a whole lot of chaps in there. Matt Zenovich, of course, being one. Cooley, as you've mentioned, trying to sneak away. It is quite tough around here. Once again, one of the Montague Creation Sign squad, they're trying to jump across as quick as they can. It's quite lumpy and it's quite hilly. You get the wrong lot of wind around here. It can really stretch things out, but you can also escape and get out of sight, which is what these riders will be trying to do as they head round the coast towards Oropuki. But this boy here has come to the SBS Bank Tour of Southland this year with some very, very good form.
And he picks himself up maximum points there. George Jackson once again in the fold here for the King of the Mountains, making their intentions very clear here, the Creation Science Mitre Q team. But the Share the Road team once again looking like they want to put a bit of pressure onto the field and see what sort of reaction they'll get.
Yeah, and the reaction is pretty quiet back there. They've let them go, and you can see here George Jackson's really driving this at the front now. He'll be wanting to make sure that James Heaney, it looks like him behind him from the Spoken Cycles squad as well, are there. But these boys have put some big time into these, chasing all the whole rest of the field really, of course, and that is quite a good move.
So this trio now starting to open up a little bit of a gap. In fact, it's James Harvey. Now, that's a man there in the blue colours who's actually been to this tour a number of times. He's a well-performed rider. Rides for St George Continental team. He's ridden here before in yellow, actually, in the tour. So they'll know the sort of seriousness of a guy like him going off the front.
And in between the two chasers coming across, 193 Mike Crawford from 2 Degrees team. That chat at the back of the peloton obviously has worked. And once again, it's Corby Price from the Base Solutions Racing. These guys have been prominent in this stage. If this front group can get together and those two can get across, this is quite a formidable crew. And the peloton will probably be thinking, hey, we've got enough guys represented from enough of the teams. This breakaway could take some time.
It's actually interesting to note there's no sign of the yellow jersey and his team here trying to control things. They've obviously either missed it or decided actually this is not a serious threat at this particular time. But the man who does think it's a bit of a threat here is the man from Australia, Kane there. He's on to the front and he has made a lot of efforts over the last couple of days. Kane Richards, that is, from the ARA Pro Racing Sunshine team. Meanwhile, our leaders here are starting to settle into their paces here. They're ignoring the colours on their backs. They want to become one unified group here as they make their way around the coast. And Doug, look at the terrain here. We don't see the trees blowing. It looks like it's going to be a pretty smooth sailing day here towards Tuatapere.
It is just a fantastic day for bike racing in Southland here today, and these chaps, you can see George Jackson, what a guy to have away in a breakaway from the Creation Science Motorq team, a team pursuer at the Com Games, an absolute workhorse. Those guys are really, really looking sharp, and of course they're all contributing, which is super important. James Harvey from the Spoken Cycles team, he's at the front as well. So this breakaway is really looking good.
Yes, these guys look like they're starting to settle into it and settle into it very quickly, because often that can be the case where it takes a little bit of energy to try and sort themselves out. Sometimes that takes the experience of one or two to try and get the guys into some sort of smooth rotation. But these guys here know what they're about. They know why they're out there, and there's no debate going on. They're straight into their work, and this potentially could open a decent gap.
And the reaction from the peloton is now starting to kick in. These boys at the back will start feeling the heat. Things are stringing out single file at the front of the group, and the chase is now starting to become a bit more coordinated.
Yes, we've seen this over the last 5 or 6 years, where it's now taken a good 50 to 60 kilometres before a break can actually establish itself getting across to Te Anau, and it's looking like this might be the same case here in 2022 as Jackson puts on the brakes, gets a bit of food, etc. organised amongst a few of them as they start to settle back into their paces and look for the next of the attacks to try and get off the front.
So here we are at the 50k mark. Daniel Bridgewater from the Base Solutions Racing team is making a bit away on his own. A brave move given that the wind has picked up. It's a solid block northerly now all the way through to Blackmount. There's Matt Zenovich from the Share the Road Macaulay Ford team trying to get across. You've got to be brave to do this sort of thing in a stage like this, Julian.
Oh, you absolutely have to be extremely brave to try and take on the challenge of a bit of a block headwind. It will no doubt come across from right to left later on as they make their way through this particular stage. If anything from the last few years is anything to go by here. But Bridgewater, he's just starting to settle into it there. He's looking to see, am I going to have a few partners with me? And we see the reaction from the peloton, which is, let's sit up, let's relax. They're starting to ease off a little bit. Now, that'll play into the hands of these two here, Zenovich and Bridgewater, as they try and get themselves further off the front. But it's a long way into Te Anau.
Matt Zenovich is famous for this sort of stuff in the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. How many times have we seen this guy do this at this stage in the race? He really is the kind of guy you want in a breakaway with you. Whether or not this is too soon and maybe a bit of a bite too much, we're going to see. But if there's one guy you want in a breakaway, it's Matt Zenovich from the Share the Road Macaulay Ford team.
So one or two riders getting themselves off the front of the peloton to try and bridge that gap. They've recognised who's gone off the front. They know the reputation of these guys, particularly with Zenovic. As you said, Doug, he's well known for this sort of thing, and they know if they want to get up there, they could be in for a bit of a chance to pick up a few dollars and potentially take a stage. But they'll also be very aware that it's going to be hard yakka out there in front into these long, these long straights with these winds.
It's beautiful scenery as you head out into Western Southland here on the SBS Bank Tour. Not that a lot of these lads are looking at the scenery, that's something they do afterwards, but this is just fantastic conditions. There's so many years we've seen the riders blown all over the road around about this stage. So with the wind the way it is straight on the head, it is actually playing into the hands of the bigger peloton, I believe. So it is going to be an interesting stage to see whether these guys can stay away or things start getting a wee bit organised further back in the field.
Yes, we could be talking two totally different stories. If those four were to get across to these two, which looking at this shot here isn't going to happen, we would see a real serious challenge compared to having two. And this will be the determination of the bunch, whether it's a large group that goes off the front, whether they chase, or if they've got two riders, they think they've got them under control, they'll sit them out there for some time and eventually try to reel them back in. As we can see, that's exactly the reaction from the peloton as they start to ease on off here, take a nature stop, have something to eat. There's the bottle going up, indicating to the team car, hey, I'd like a drink.
Yeah, there's a bit of a coordinated rest stop here coming along. You can see the Share the Road guys are probably encouraging, hey, let's just have a wee stop here and let Matt Zenovic ride up the road as far as he can. The QFS squad there, you can see the tour leader, young Boris Clark, he's having a chat as well. So this is the sort of thing that happens in bike racing all over the world. It's not an uncommon thing, but I wouldn't be hanging around too far here, guys, because you let Matt Zenovic get a sniff of a finish line and he'll stay away all day.
Jelly tips,
Christmas on the beach.
jet planes,
Pavlova.
triplets,
Gene Bannon.
bungee jumps.
Here we are, trying to outdo each other on YNZ's the best. Feel free to go outside and enjoy the view. Will be a while.
Dan Carter's Undie campaign.
No surprise here to see the Tour Leaders team at the front of the peloton as we move forward towards the base of the big climb of the day, the Black Mount Hill. And the man in yellow being protected by his teammates as we see the time gap now extending out to 5:58 with those two men out in front making their bid for glory.
Yeah, it isn't panic stations by any means. The likes of Michael Talkler in that Quality Food Southland squad, he's been around a long time, a veteran of this race. He'll be controlling things at the front. Meanwhile, here out the front of the race, Matt Zenovic and Daniel Bridgewater from the Base Solutions racing team, they're starting to hit the base of this Black Mount climb. It really does take a lot out of you this point of the race. If you've used a lot of energy getting to the base of Black Mount, things can compound as you start climbing up. So this is going to be do or die for these two, whether or not they can keep that distance and keep that lead that they've got going over the top of this climb.
The faces have certainly shown you the pain that these guys are in. We get a good shot of the sort of gearings that they're pumping along, and Zenovic has been punching a big gear for the vast majority of today, as we often see him do so on any of the racing that he gets involved with here. Bridgewater hanging on to him here. They're not so concerned about the points. It's still all about the possibility of taking out a stage in this year's tour. And these two are doing a fantastic job of it here. But as you said, Doug, the race will light up typically going down the other side, where they'll pick up close to 100k an hour. Maybe not so much today, though, with the way that breeze is coming across.
The weather always has its say in the SBS Bank Tour of Southland, and these boys are really going to find out all about that. Like you've just said, a descent into a headwind is not much of a descent, and these guys need all the time and all of the space between themselves and the peloton that they possibly can.
So we see a two-stage winner from 2021, Campbell Pithy, at the head of the field here doing the chase. Of course, last year he took out this particular stage and then he took out Bluff a few days later. This year he's in domestique mode here for his team. That, of course, is the Transport Engineering Southland Deep South team as they roll steadily up the Black Mount Hill.
Back at the front of the race, you can see here the time check coming from the Macaulay Ford van down to 1:05. I would think that the spirit of these boys probably is a wee bit broken. There's a bit of a consolatory pat on the back there from Matt Zenovich to young Daniel Bridgewater. Hey, good one, mate, but I think our game out the front might be coming to an end. A sterling effort from these guys and into some super tough conditions. This was really brave, a really brave attempt to stay away.
Yes, it's been a massive effort by the two of them here. As we look to the Peloton, though, who have ramped things on up, they want a stage. The sprinters are starting to lick their lips if they've made it over the Black Mount. We'll look out to see what sort of colours we can see in there. But it's the man who formerly was a rower and based himself for some study at Harvard University, who set sail, leaving Zenovich behind here, who's done his dash for the day. He'll look for the confines of the main Peloton, who are starting to make their way along. But look of the face here of the man on the front, Bridgewater. Can he hold off a chasing peloton of about 80 riders here as they approach just over 20k to go?
Yeah, that is really going to be an effort, especially given the headwind conditions. And you can see the transport engineering team, Michael Vinks at the front. The unfortunate, crash yesterday has probably dented his chances severely. But here he is at the front, putting his sprinter into as good a position as he possibly can. And he's looking a lot better today.
So it looks like the leader has been sucked back into the fold with some 3,000 metres now remaining as they approach the outskirts here of Te Anau along the lakefront into the finish here. As I said earlier, the sprinters now will be starting to set themselves up. There'll be a few teams getting themselves organised to try and position them in the right spot here into the finish.
Yeah, the stage finish into Te Anau is all about positioning. You've got to do it coming right into this corner. You can see the boys now. Nick Kurgazu is safely placed in third in the green jersey, but it's still a wee way ahead of the finish. They're starting to unwind right now.
They're starting to wind things on up here into the closing stages here of day 3 on the SBS Bank Tour of Southland, and a lot of pressure going on the front. A few starting to push each other left, right and centre as they line themselves up over the last 500 odd metres, and it could go any which way at the moment. Ari Scott starting to make his move out the outside there. We're also starting to see George Jackson there in the green jersey. Can he take out another stage for their team here? But Zach Patterson, he's starting to move up on the inside as well. This could go all sorts of ways, but it's the orange and blue colours of the former junior road champion of New Zealand, Zach Patterson, who takes it on out and a fine finish here into Te Anau. After a dramatic sprint finish, the man in yellow, Boris Clark, continues to hold on to a slender lead of 9 seconds over Henny, with Campbell at 17 seconds, Cooley at 19 and Oliver at 31. In the Harcourt sprint ace, it was Kurgazu who did the calculations correctly once again to get the early sprints to lead by 2 points over Bridgewater. Alex Henny continues to lead the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains, while Zenovich and Jackson now make themselves available in the top 3. Max Campbell continues to lead in the under 23 section by a mere 22 seconds from Kench. While a little bit of a switch around in the Stonewood Homes silver jersey sees Joe Cooper move into the lead, tied on the same time with Torkler, followed by Hayden. And after a massive effort out on the roads of Southland today, Daniel Bridgewater awarded the Macleay Jewelers most combative. As we saw yesterday, Central Benchmakers Wilbite continues to lead in the Wednesday Cycles team classification.
The plan was for today to just force anyone to get in the break from our team, and luckily we had one of them in there, so pressure was off us for the chase. Probably take the most competitive jersey for tomorrow, and then the stage win just to cap it off.
Yeah, it was a big day, especially with the headwind. But no, it was good. Got a good amount of sprint points while up the road, and it was a bit of fun. And then our teammate managed to come through for the win, so we can't really complain, really.
It was just actually a pretty special day for me. Like, some of my best mates on the team just working in the front for me, and then one of the most experienced or best bike riders I think out of New Zealand, Michael Torkler, just keeping me calm, telling me what to do, telling guys what to do, and it was just awesome, and it worked out so well for us.
Another day here in yellow. Folks, would you put your hands together for Boris Clark from Quality Food Southlands.
Follow the action from this historic race with live race updates, full results and pictures at tourofsouthland.com.